Before we get going, I'd like to talk about a little news real fast, and that is that Netflix is making some big pushes in the sort of anime industry and trying to appeal to the Western audience. This is pretty cool, because I feel like Netflix has kind of been dragging their feet. Yeah, they license Violet Evergarden, Little Witch Kakegurui, but then they, release it super late, and then they end up, you can only get it in dub, and there's no way to watch it when it's coming out legally. It's just a complete mess. But hopefully with what they've announced over the past 48 hours, it kind of shows more of a desire to give anime fans what they want. And first thing they gave us that many fans have been demanding for a long time, Netflix has now licensed Neon Genesis Evangelion. This is pretty damn huge, because for a long time it seemed like no one was getting Eva. No one licensed it. Yeah, Funimation did the Rebuild movies and all that, but those suck. So the idea that someone was actually able to get Eva, and the fact that it was the biggest streaming platform in the world, is really cool, especially because they're not really doing anything with Eva at the moment. So either there's a bigger project in the loop, which is possible, or what I think it more likely is they just kind of want to give anime fans what they want. And more importantly, because it's Netflix, this pushes that onto a much larger audience, a world-scale audience. Because remember, Eva's been out of print for a long time, but its influence has never been forgotten. It is one of the most important anime of all time, and many people outside the anime community have heard of it. Many American movies have been influenced by it, so now everyone will have easy access to what is essentially a cornerstone of, in a very real way, just modern day filmmaking and television. I personally don't super love Eva. I've actually never even made it through the whole thing. In part due to the fact that the show is so iconic, it sort of feels like history class, just trying to get through it like it's a homework assignment. Also, I have a couple gripes with that show that kind of keep me from finishing it. But if it's on Netflix, which I'm paying for anyways, now is going to be the time. More importantly, would you all care if I checked it out? Tell me that in the comments below. And the other big story is the announcement of a Cowboy Bebop TV show. Okay, first up, let's get the most important element out of the way, and that is I really get kind of nervous, because one thing I sort of noticed with the Marvel stuff, which is kind of the thing you can compare it to the most. Obviously, that is going for a similar audience to what this will go for. This comes from a previous source, similar to comics in a lot of ways. But you look at what they did there, and that is that they made every story too long, they dragged every plot point out, and worst of all, they seemed embarrassed by the source material, especially Jessica Jones Season 2. So many of these Marvel Netflix shows feel like they have the mentality of, oh, that's for children, that's goofy, that's stupid, we're Netflix, we gotta be better than that, we gotta make this shit for adults, we gotta have Luke Cage mope around and whine for 13 episodes, we gotta have Jessica Jones go in circles till it's time for the plot to happen. And it sucks, because so much of the material is so good, and so much of the elements they've got going in is so good, and I'm worried they'll do that with Bebop. Just a tentpole franchise for them to sort of grind up, and put into their own stupid, binge-watching bullshit. And again, I love Netflix, I'm not trying to knock it, but that's just where I'm kind of afraid they'll do with Bebop, and I don't want that to happen. But, I mean, obviously, we'll need to hear where this goes. Christopher Yost, who did Thor Ragnarok, is doing episode 1. That's cool. I don't know what that means for the rest of the show. And the creator's being brought on as a consultant, so that's cool. We'll just have to see. Just something I wanted to address real quick. And as for this week's episode of Yu-Gi-Oh!, pretty simple, so that's why I felt it was okay to bring up other stuff. So this week was, once again, very Blood Shepherd and Emma focused, which I quite liked, actually. I like that when Emma talks to Blood Shepherd, for the first time we see a vulnerable Emma, we see kind of her trying to be more human, trying to be more relatable. For the most part, Emma is portrayed as being sort of this cool, always has to be in control, always sort of thinking and conniving, which is fine, I like Emma, but this is interesting. I like that idea that family, or the desire for connection, or the desire to have people in your life, just like it would be for anyone else, is the thing that is most vulnerable for her. That is the thing that makes her kind of let her guard down. Even though she obviously knows Blood Shepherd's a lunatic, and just walking up to him in a cemetery could potentially be dangerous for her. But she's like, I gotta try. And I quite like that bit. And I like the fact that Blood Shepherd and his whole sort of issues with the father is sort of brought up again. I thought that would be a one-off, but I like that idea that he's just kind of at the grave, and he's just got all his different emotions of hate and anger and confusion all sort of welling up at once, and the response he gives is, I'm done with him, like I'm done with all this. It's a neat little scene, and I quite enjoy it. Then we move on to the big focus of this episode, and that being Blood Shepherd versus Lightning. First up, let's talk about some aesthetic decisions. I like the field spell we're in. I like that we're not just in a generic computer world. I like that it looks like the dual field Bowman and Yusaku were on in their second duel, because it sort of gives you this idea, like a nice visual cue that, you know, how much stronger Lightning and his plan has become since then. Like, it's expanding and it's becoming this more complicated, complex sort of world thing. Also, it looked to me like the two sort of Hercules-looking statues that were holding the city up kind of looked like Bowman. Maybe an interesting little sort of insight into Lightning's view of humanity and what he considers to be a perfect-looking being. I also liked his deck. I thought it looked very cool. I quite enjoyed the fact that Lightning is portrayed as this intelligent strategist, so his cards are sort of themed after this combination of chess pieces in a lot of ways, and also looking very kind of Alexander the Great, Greek, sort of Roman, like that idea of like the elite strategists and their sort of commitment to perfection and the perfect being. It's very well reflected in Lightning and his duel style, and it's a clever bit. I also like the scene where we see Windy again. I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw him, just like that upshot of him in the water, it looked like he was fine, and I thought, oh, okay, he's just fine, and I was okay with that, but I kind of like it was a nice little trick, because when we get in and we see more of Light, and we see more of Windy, and we see that, no, he's permanently damaged. He's permanently messed up, and his head's all weird, like that virus really did a number on him. And I like that we see that it's turned him more sadistic, more darker. Now, obviously, we learned Windy's not a good guy, but up until then, you could make the argument, well, he just views humans as playthings. Like, he's just kind of so detached from any sense of consequence, he just kind of does whatever. But now we're seeing this very angry, vengeful side for him, and rightfully so. Look what he got put through. And it's nice to see, and I like just out of how much they just lean into just how much he's ready to fuck with everybody. And that's cool to me. That's cool to watch. And then we move on to the duel. This was actually a pretty simple episode, all in all. What I really liked about the duel, I like Lightning's attitude from the minute Blood Shepherd shows up. That first scene where he kind of talks to Jin and it's kind of like, oh yeah, you can't answer. I feel like you're sort of left to wonder what kind of his mental state is in that scene. Because one of the interesting things about Lightning is he doesn't emote and he doesn't react, especially in the same way compared to the other Ignises. So I feel like that was kind of played up here as you don't really know what's going through his mind, or servos, or whatever you want to call it. Like, he might be having a more fun, sadistic side like other previous Yu-Gi-Oh! Villains, or maybe he just generally had a moment where he's like, oh, I'm used to having Windy to bounce off of, or Bowman, oh yeah, I'm just stuck with my weird manservant. I kind of like that. I sort of like that, and it's kind of gets set up for what happens later when Blood Shepherd shows up. The way he's playing with Blood Shepherd, the way he's kind of messing with Blood Shepherd. It's quite interesting and really neat, and I quite enjoyed it. Because it's interesting because he's playing to Blood Shepherd's hubris. Because Blood Shepherd believes that he can be the master of AI, he can destroy AI. And now here's this guy, or AI, who is sort of being sadistic and fun and just kind of screwing with everybody and being playful and showing how much superior he thinks he is to everybody. And it's a really cool little bit. I quite like it. It's disturbing, it's weird, and then like that only sort of forces Blood Shepherd to want to kill him more. Like essentially what feels like he's walking into a trap, but like Lightning has poked that beehive that is Blood Shepherd to the point where he's like, you called me weak, I'll show you, you stupid computer. and it's a cool little bit, and I liked it. So yeah, that was this week's episode. Sorry it wasn't as long as the rest, but the Netflix thing to me is a bit more interesting, and also this episode had good stuff in it, but it was very simple. I kind of appreciate that overall. But what do you think? Tell me that in the comments section below. And as for the TCG question of the week, we gotta make this a fast one. We've kind of gone pretty long here. So 2 new hero cards came out. I did not do a video on the last one because obviously kind of a lot happened last week. Also, I'm very torn on it. I've got him in front here. I'm sure you've all read the effect. If not, I'll just link their wikis below. This guy is interesting. I don't think he's very competitively viable. I would like for something to make heroes more competitively viable, but his effect and his summoning condition are so bonkers. I kind of have to love it. It's so insane. And the fact that you can use him into potentially toolbox into any fusion you want, for any fusion materials you want, I think is a lot of fun. So even though I don't think this card is competitively viable, I mean, we saw back in the day with 5-headed dragon in in elemental dragon format. We saw what the ability to just dump any amount of monsters you want for a fusion monster can do for the game. So, jury's still out on this card. I have seen some sort of interesting combos people have made, so we'll have to see where that goes. The other card, though, I actually like this card a lot. So we have a new card, Double Hero Attack, just because I have it in front of me. Once again, description below. This thing is cool, like, bust out more big-ass boss monsters. Is it a little situational? Yeah. Is it fun as hell, and can you potentially do some crazy OTK combos? Yes. Do it, Yu-Gi-Oh! Community. I know you can. I feel like you could easily mix this with the Omni Heroes and Neos. Somebody do it, people. Anyway, sorry this one went on long, sorry we jumped around a lot, sorry it's gonna sound a little choppy in this last segment, but give me your thoughts on this week's TCG question, this episode, the Netflix thing, and as always, click to like, click to subscribe, and join me for all your crazy anime Western adaptation botched news.